Well, hi again, this is Dr. Michael Bogart. I'm glad you're back for clip 3 in this 7th series of videos in exploring world religions. In this clip, we'll look at the lesser known of the native Chinese religions, which is Confucianism. So those who study these things are divided about Confucianism. On the one hand, some would hesitate to classify Confucianism as a religion. They say it's really more like a reverential philosophy. And for one thing, it doesn't really talk about the supernatural much or the meaning of life beyond the here and now. So is it really a religion? Others think that even so, it has religious undertones because it does provide sort of an overall guide for life that will apply across the board in all sorts of realms and levels of society. And it gives a sort of a big picture for how life should be lived in its entirety. So is Confucianism a religion or isn't it? So in this series, we're going to classify Confucianism as a low-voltage religion, since for China, as well as Korea and Japan, it has provided a guiding structure for those cultures over many, many centuries. Okay, if Confucianism doesn't speak much about God or the supernatural, then what does it focus on? Well, simply the conditions for restoring what Confucius believed was the original, ancient, ideal human society that had been lost for generations and generations. So let's drop back for a moment and look at the life of Confucius. He lived during a time in Chinese history called the era of the Warring States. His name, as he was given when he was born, is Confucius. Kung was the family name, and Zu translates as something like your honor or something like that. Today we might call somebody the Honorable John Smith, something like that equivalent in Chinese society. Confucius is just the way Westerners say his name, so Confucius. He is thought to have lived from 551 to 479 BC, towards the end of the Axis Age. He ran a school of applied philosophy and wandered around from province, state to state, teaching and attracting followers. Now, although Confucius applied at several places, several royal courts and state governments for the position of political advisor, he never received an invitation and he died as that wandering philosopher. But the thing about it is he attracted students wherever he went, where towards the end of his life he had quite a large following. And I think that was the key to his success. He probably never actually wrote a book himself, but he may have compiled the classic of Spring and Autumn Annals from other sources. However, the followers of Confucius did record and publish his sayings as the Analects of Confucius. So if they have a scripture, that's probably it. The gist of the Analects is that the ancient, ideal Chinese society must be restored, and it gives the way to go about it. A major emphasis is that everyone has a proper place in society, from the emperor to the servant, and that each person must do his or her best to live up to their position, their status in life. Other themes in the Analects include the following. Li is virtue. In other words, what does good behavior look like? How should a person behave according to their station, their role in life? Xiao is respect for parents, elders, and social superiors. Zhen is the proper human feeling in any given situation. Virtuous people should experience certain feelings in certain situations. Confucius spoke about how to foster proper feelings. Shu is reciprocal behavior, not only by treating others fairly, but things also like parents loving and caring for their children, and children reciprocating by respecting and honoring their parents. Yi is the concept of proper relationships between husband and wife, parent and child, neighbors, and so forth. Qi is the pursuit of wisdom for living a good life. Cheng, Ming is honesty in describing something, calling it what it actually is, and consistency in simply being what you are. And a Chun Zu is the ideal man who lives out all of those virtues. Okay, did Confucius have anything to say about spiritual things? Well, his followers and students naturally asked about his views concerning what most people would think of as purely religious things. And although spiritual topics were not Confucius' main focus, he did respond to these types of questions. For instance, they asked, is there an afterlife? And Confucius seems to have been an agnostic about whether there is life after death. He thought that it was more productive, however, to use time to focus on making the here and now better. Students also asked, well, okay, are there spirits? And do those spirits interact with us in our world? And he said, perhaps. So go ahead and pay reverence to them in the religious rites, but don't focus on them. They're a waste of time. Work on what you can fix. Well, what about the traditional ancient beliefs of Chinese religion? What about the rituals and ceremonies? He thought that rituals should be carefully observed, especially by rulers, but also by everybody else, and that was a central duty with all members of society. It provides comfort, it provides stability, and it's needed to restore that ancient ideal society. So Confucius left a huge legacy that's impacted a great deal of Asia. Over 200 years after his death, his movement went through the inevitable development, however. In the 200s BC, the Han dynasty elevated the teachings of Confucius to official government status and spread it all over the provinces of China. Eventually, two schools of Confucian thought developed. One was Mencius. Mencius was a fourth-generation disciple of Confucius, and he took Confucius's teachings and added a twist that had not been fully explained originally, and that was the nature of human nature. To restore the ancient ideal society, it's vital that people cooperate with this goal. But are people basically good or bad? Are they going to cooperate voluntarily or not? The answer will determine if and how that kind of goal can be achieved. And by the way, the nature of human nature, if I can put it like that, is a core issue in any religion. Christianity, for instance, tends to be pessimistic about human nature. Christianity teaches, of course, that people are born with a tendency to do their own thing, often in defiance of the Creator and to the harm of fellow humans, including themselves. Islam tends to see people as neutral at birth, but Mencian Confucianism sees humans as innately good. However, their goodness doesn't show itself automatically, Mencius taught. It requires cultivation and the right social environment to flourish. So, fixing government, providing education, that was a big Mencian goal. Hun Tzu, on the other hand, was more pessimistic about human nature. He felt that people could not be trusted on their own to pursue the Confucian virtues, even with education and good environment in society. So they must be regulated and, if necessary, punished if they stepped out of line. Okay, so much for Confucianism. Before we wrap this clip up, I want to briefly explore Buddhism in China. Now, Buddhism entered China from India in the last century BC. It gained a large following from about the 4th century AD onwards. In China, however, Buddhism developed into the Mahayana form and changed China by emphasizing otherworldliness in this very worldly, practical Chinese culture. However, Buddhism, as it developed in China, was also transformed by China to be much more focused on the here and now and to include deities, rituals, and so forth that had not been present in its original form in its Indian context. 3 main sects of Chinese Buddhism have developed. The Heavenly Terrace sect practiced traditional Buddhist meditation with the goal to achieving nirvana. The Pure Land sect is devoted to good behavior that leads to life after death in the Pure Land in heaven. Now, since this sect seems to have developed after the rise of Christianity and it developed in Western China, closer towards the Middle East, it's easy to wonder whether maybe Buddhism met some form of Christianity somewhere along the Silk Road, because some of the ideas seem to be pretty similar. The Chan sect, called Zen in Japan, strives for sudden enlightenment on the way to personal Buddhahood through stressful training and disciplined meditation. Okay, that's all for this 7th series of videos in the Exploring World Religions series. In Series 8, we'll take a closer look at another little-known religion, this time in Japan, Shinto. And we'll also explore Zen Buddhism, which is a well-known Japanese sect of Buddhism that they got from China. We'll explore that a bit more as well. Till then, this is Dr. Michael Bogart. We'll see you in the next clip.